Welcome to Raw and Refined, the Gentleman's Hour, where we're going to have conversation with middle-aged black men about what's going on. We welcome you to listen, comment, and like, and hopefully encourage others to join for future conversations as well. We always like to start off with a toast, and with that toast, it's because we are gentlemen and we do it raw and refined.
So, GK, why don't you start us off with the beverage for today?
Yep. So I think I've introduced this beverage before. It is one of my favorites. It's from Benny's, local liquor store in Chicago, and they always have it on sale. It's unbelievable. It's actual champagne. And, as you know, champagne has to be from a particular region of France to actually be called champagne. Otherwise, it's called sparkling wine.
Yeah.
But
Unless
this
it's
is
from
actually
Champagne.
champagne from the Champagne region of France. And it's like really, really inexpensive as champagne goes. So this is what I tend to drink when I'm not drinking mezcal. So this is a drink. I am opening the bottle right now, and you're going to hear the pop sound in just a moment.
There
you
it is.
go. And so it's Haslinger and Fee. And the funny thing is we all took French. So there's probably a better enunciation of it than the one I just gave.
Right.
Yeah,
Haslinger and Fee. I think, John, you took all 4 years of French, so you know
Right.
better. But this is the drink. It's a good, inexpensive champagne.
Outstanding.
well, salute. I have
Salute.
Prosecco and a
Salute.
Yeti. I know y'all talked about that before, but we're still in the final stages of rehabbing the crib. So stuff ain't quite where it's supposed to be yet. So I know where this thing is all the time. So
Hey, it keeps it the right temperature all the time, right? It's all good.
and cold and keeps the fizz, brother.
You keep sipping how you like sipping, okay?
Yeah. Only problem is it's got a big straw. So you
There
gotta be
you go.
careful.
There you go. That's right. That's right. I'm gonna live through y'all on this one tonight, so I'm gonna have to figure out what my sparkling choice will be come the next time this comes up.
It's gonna come up pretty much anytime Greg is the one making the choice.
And we
Pretty
see
much.
I put it out there. One of y'all need to come up with the beverage choice. John said, "Well, I don't really have a thought in mind." And Greg said, "Well, I know. Let's throw that up." So
right.
Get hit with the go-to. That's the go-to for them. Get you a choice in stock, there, brother.
I'm gonna go on and get me some.
Yes.
I need to find that one that you talking about. You got to text it to me to the group. Put it in the group so I know which one you talking about.
Greg, the one you talking with, the one. Yeah.
I will do that going forward.
Yeah. So let's jump on into this. Welcome, listeners. It's been a minute. Life's been lifing, and so we've been away for more than a minute, but we're back. And so today we got kind of a double whammy for you. We got two topics, two themes that we're gonna touch on both of them, and they're kind of interconnected and kind of not, but both topics are about preparing the next generation and challenging long-standing assumptions, I guess you could say. The two topics for today are the importance of mentoring for Black men and our role as older men in guiding our younger brothers.
You did say
mentoring.
older and not old, right?
I said older. I said as older
Maybe because
men.
I didn't hear it. That just shows that I'm actually hearing old. But
Yeah, no, that's because as you're getting older, your hearing is getting worse. A sign that you are an older man. Now, yes, so guiding our younger brothers. And the second one is whether college should still be viewed as the required path for success in the Black community. So two different perspectives, both tied together, or two different topics tied to this notion of preparing the next generation. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I said, we've been away for a minute, so we're excited. Got a lot of stuff to try and unpack in these two topics, and looking forward to it. So I'm going to hand it over to John.
I appreciate that, Rick. So we're going to start it off talking about mentorship, and from that lead into higher education and what that may look like as well. So, mentorship has always been a curious topic for me for sure. I didn't really understand mentorship until honestly, till after I'd already gotten into medicine. And I look back, I don't recall really having a mentor coming up through school age, times, college. I again can't recall that person that I would have identified as that's my mentor, someone I would have run to for questions or guidance or, how do I get to my next path in life? I just thought that I had some things assumed on how I needed to get there, but really didn't have that professor or someone then. Medical school, again, just did not feel or see, except for maybe my program director at the time, was one that if I looked back and could identify as a possible mentor would have been that. But I really didn't understand mentorship until after already being in practice of medicine as well. And it made me think about how much I felt I may have missed out on. And how I realized if I had mentors
Yeah.
throughout my steps of growing up, I may be at a better understanding, a better state of things. I'm doing well. Things are going great, but I think there's still probably more that I probably missed out on without, quote, having a mentor. And sometimes I'm approached to be a mentor for medical students or residents coming up, or even young docs that are coming in, or through my fraternity, we try to mentor the newer members that come in as well. But in all fairness, I still had to learn what that meant to be a mentor, and I'm still learning. So that's why this conversation really came up, was for us to help identify, one, what do we believe would be helpful in mentoring, and two, why do we even feel like it is important, especially for young Black males, to have mentors? And I think they come in all shapes and sizes and things like that. But I'm sure we're going to get more into that as we go on with the conversation as well. So I think as we are starting now, we're looking at it as a question of, as older men. Again, here we got this aspect: are we old or are we older? I think we're talking as older men. How do we step into that role of guiding our younger brothers?
Well, John, I'm fascinated by you having said that you don't really, and I'm going to speak for you. You correct me if I missed it, but the notion that you felt that you didn't really have a mentor, I'm fascinated by that because
I've had that same feeling.
I feel the same way, right? There's a way in which there wasn't, I can't think of a single person who like helped guide me. No, I've said the same thing. And I think it's because of that I have, at least engaging with young folks, young cats. I don't think I call it mentoring, but at least keep some young cats around me that I like to try to talk to and treat as grown people, and like weigh in when asked, or sometimes offer stuff to. I guess that's kind of mentoring, but I don't really see it that way. I don't call it that, but I'm like you. I'm like, cool. I don't have, I had that.
Yeah, at least in how I can conceptualize a mentor, or what it means to mentor someone. So the noun or the verb, I did not have that going on for me coming up. I think probably that wouldn't even be it to say, because I was going to say maybe kind of in law school, the way that the Black Law Student Association, the older, when I was in my first year, the second and third years, how they kind of brought us along. But that wasn't really mentorship. That was more so just the culture of the Black law students in law school, and how we took care of each other. So I guess it might have been more community than mentorship. When I think of mentorship, I think of someone that's concerted effort to kind of guide you along a path, or to help correct your path if you're headed in the wrong direction, or to kind of to give you some wisdom. Those things, I think, and when I think of mentorship, I think of a relationship. Is how I conceive of it.
A two-way one.
Yeah,
right?
yes, a two-way one, exactly. And so I don't feel like I had that either. I had role models. I had
Right.
people that cared. I had people that in college, no, I had some people that cared about me, but no, it wasn't that back and forth, that true relationship in that fashion. So let's kind of like, looking at it historically, as we're talking about it, when we were coming up, even looking at the different organizations or social institutions at the time. We, notes at family, church, sports, community leaders, those were around, but I still honestly don't see that mentor that would have stuck out for me. So I agree with you, John. Do you think those kind of traditional mentoring structures exist today? We did not see that, but I know, Greg, you're saying that you might not call it that, but you try to, you have assumed that role, or you kind of have building those kind of relationships with some young people that you keep around. So how much of it do you see today? Yeah,
Outside
I've got
of
an example.
yeah.
I got an example. His brother, he's from Chicago. We used to hoop with him. His name is Marty Monaghan. He's got this, he's the, I want to say executive director, and I might get that wrong, but I'll have to go to his website. But he runs this organization called the Black Man Lab. And he's in Atlanta now. And whenever I'm down there, I'm trying to see if I can catch up with him on a time when they have some kind of event going on. But I'm usually down there for graduation and don't have the time to make it to some of the different things. But I know that they do mentoring as a big part of this organization, but it's called the Black Man Lab. And so it's a really interesting and cool organization that this brother is doing right now. Very, very grassroots. But that just popped into my head as an example of where I know there's some structured opportunities for older cats to mentor young cats that are connected to this organization. So to your point, the corporate, like you said, but also that not-for-profit space, is where we see that kind of stuff, community organizations and that kind of thing. Even the one that I was a part of a few years back, called Project Higher Edge, one of the things that we were talking about doing was some mentoring within the structure that we were trying to develop. So, I think there's some opportunities out there, and that it does exist.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
thought it
and
was interesting what you said, Greg. I'm sorry, John, about the politics I think it's interesting because a lot of times I feel like the older politicians don't ever really want to let go, unless it's
I
a
think
family. Yeah. And so even the mentoring gets stunted to a certain degree because
well,
they
there's a
don't want
certain person that I consider
to.
by, but I consider a relationship. I
But is
think
that
it's
required for the relationship? And to your point, is that required? Is that part of the definition? And we lost John. John in there. John was about to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are both touching on really about, as I've kind of looked into what mentoring and mentorship is, you both have said really the qualities of what makes up mentoring. And the key to that is that it does have to be a two-way relationship. Otherwise, you're just a teacher to that person and the person becomes a student otherwise, or a coach, and you're the athlete or whatever that you need to be coached in. And from that, there has to be, some sense of what I've looked into: clarity, communication, and consultation. So that's the things that you both have just been saying, is that it has to be some kind of, advice, awareness. We've got to be able to talk about what does that look like?
Hey, this
Where
is
am I
going
trying to
on.
achieve?
I got an issue that I need some.
Right. All of that is what I can come to see that is a part of it as we're getting into like current settings, social media, and things like that.
I did have that a little bit. First boss when I started practicing law, Mark Dubofsky. I will say that I considered.
I remember Dubofsky. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that he was a mentor in some respects. He was.
That's it. I mean, so when I was coming to North Carolina to start practice, the way I got sold on coming was the provider that I was going to be working with was an established Black male internal medicine physician already in the community. So here I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm about to truly get some mentoring into how to do this thing as well. But I think I've told y'all the story that before getting before I even got here, he decided he didn't want to be a part of the company anymore. So we never got to work together. Yeah, I think I met him probably about 5 years after I'd already been established and stuff. So, but I mean, so I think, like we said, I think those are some aspects, but some structured areas, Rich, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, I think that is considered a mentoring program that's out there. I know for the fraternal organizations, they have mentoring programs within their organizations, and I'm sure the sororities do as well. But our conversation is more around the young men and things here as we talk. But it has to be those, you at least need those three elements, I think, as part of mentoring. You need that clarity, communication, and consultation. That has to be a part of it as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
The 3 C's. The 3 C's of mentoring.
Yep. In the beginning, that we mentoring. Even
So you had some of the verb, but not necessarily the noun. You had some
exactly.
mentoring, but you might not have had a true mentor.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there were a few opportunities along the way. One of the interesting questions I think that popped up when we were putting together the outline was this notion of how changing family dynamics or how social media has impacted this notion of mentoring. Because to the question of, do these structures still exist? And if we look at these 3 C's, I think the 3 C's could exist over social media. The 3 C's could exist even if family dynamics are changing, if there's an opportunity for that relationship. If people build relationships through social media, it's interesting that there are some people I communicate with regularly on Facebook that I've never really spent any time with in person, but we align on different ideas or thoughts or issues, and so we interact regularly.
Well, that brings in even up to date conversation as it relates to ChatGPT AI and what kind of influence that seems to be able to have on some people. There is the recent case of the young man who committed suicide based on his conversation with ChatGPT and AI, God rest his soul. But that in some form was an AI device mentoring this young man.
And that's just it. It doesn't have all the 3 C's.
Well,
and so it's
exactly.
It's close to mentorship, but it's not true mentorship.
Right.
Right. What were your 3 C's again?
Clarity,
communication, and consultation.
And so, so you had consultation and some kind of sort of, well, I don't know.
a
Clarity,
certain kind of
definitely not.
communication did happen.
Yeah. Yeah, but the clarity is what's lacking there.
Yep.
Clarity around the relationship, and then clarity around the especially if it was ChatGPT, which is notorious for making mistakes. Recent study, they figured out why ChatGPT why all of these AIs make up stuff is because of the training. The way they were being trained was the training rewarded them for an answer, but did not reward them for saying, I don't know, which is what you should do when you don't know. And so they start making up shit. So
That
Right.
right. So I think that clarity piece is missing.
That I agree with.
That's
that.
crazy though, because even if it's not a true mentorship, it's a relationship. And you got that person was looking for guidance of some sort. Sounded like some deeper issues, but yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, but think about like catfish and things like that. These are all opportunities that folks get into whatever they feel they're needing, lacking, wanting, grab on to something that is not tangible to them, but yet has somehow figured out the psyche or what this person is looking for or what is perceived that they're looking for. And then try to provide that for them. And in most cases, unfortunately, in a negative way as well. Those are the things, but that can happen in real life. I'm sure there are instances of folks, quote, thought they had a mentor and that mentor was just using them, for whatever gain they were trying to get.
Yep.
And I think it's what you said too, GK. It's a matter of what is the mentoring trying to help you with? So is it a role in work? Is it a role in politics? Is it a role in life? So if it's a role in life, the question that I'm going to pose to us is, does that person need to look like me? or does that person need to understand the culture that I'm in to help me with that guidance? And does that person need to be a male?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I'm going to say no to all three. If the question is life, you said,
Yeah.
now in career, I think there should be some alignment, at least with respect to experience or the path I'm trying to head down or something like that. Even if it's, I think socially, there might be some benefits if I'm seeking guidance in social settings from someone who has similar experiences or maybe looks more like me or something like that. But I don't know. I think as it's just in this grandest thing of life and how to live or how to live my best life or how to achieve my grandest goals or something like that. I think no is the answer to all of those because I think it really comes down to that, again, that relationship and that individual, that other person, their ability to truly connect with you and get out that stuff out of you. Right? Because if this is about a mentor is helping you achieve some level or some goal or something, it's all about that relationship between you and that person and their ability to help you see what you need to see to get where you're trying to go. So that can come in any form, I think.
Agree. And what's foundational to that relationship really is trust, right? Like of the thing that the person's trying to mentor you on, or like you actually, there's a certain vulnerability that comes with like allowing someone to mentor you, certain arrogance perhaps in saying you're mentoring someone. Okay, confident saying that you're mentoring someone. You mentoring a relation.
Yeah, well, that dips you off into a whole other direction because with this term trust, because I think too, that's one of those terms that I think a lot of people misuse, or I think a lot of people, I should say, give trust in situations where it's not earned. I think a lot of times people are willing to trust someone because they like them. Real trust is born out of experience. I could shared experience ultimately. So I could trust that you're going to do this or that in this situation because I know you, because we've gone through this together or that or this or that. And so I think this notion of trust sometimes is handed out a little too freely in some settings. I think though, as it relates to this mentorship thing that you're talking about, it's the essence of it is because I have to be able to, if I don't trust you, how am I going to execute whatever it is that you're trying to give me? Am I truly going to be willing to go down that path or take that? Or especially when a lot of times mentors are going to ask you to look at yourself or to really be honest about X, Y, or Z. You got to be willing to accept that criticism.
Well, how do you think, given that, how do we think we could advise some younger folks? So my son, your son, Miles, yes, we are. So that could bring a whole nother question. Fathering and mentoring. What's the difference in the two? Because we've got those experiences. We've lived life that they are probably looking at and things of that nature. But is that just being a father to them? So how do we help them to look for mentors in their life
Yeah.
for what maybe they may be looking for as their life and growing up and trying to figure this thing out as well? What are some things we might need to try to recommend for them?
Or mindful of.
Well, and that connects to just the lack of role models, father figures, et cetera, that are around. So proximity is an issue with a lot of that.
Yeah. So like just for 5 years, right? Right. That's
I don't think it's very because of the relationship piece of it. Right. Everything that we're talking about is ultimately tied to relationship. And I know one of the questions was, why do you think some younger men resist being mentored? And it's that relationship piece, right? It's that credibility piece. Why should I listen to you? Who are you? And
a
that
certain
comes
amount of
from
arrogance that comes with saying I'm going to, right?
right. It's that trust piece. I don't know you. Who are you? Why should I listen to you?
And unfortunately, in our aspects of our community, we just haven't had those positive, especially male role models coming up. So again, it's what you said, Rich, it's the trust piece. has to, at least in our opinion, needs to be a part of that relationship or develop throughout that relationship as well, too. So that's a barrier there, but definitely if we don't get it that way, then typically we're getting it from those that we are around. And sometimes that's not always the best influence there as well. So again, if I'm having this conversation with Jonathan, I guess I would say just what you guys have been saying there is that, well, make sure that it's someone that has some experience in what it is that you're trying to accomplish and achieve. Make sure that you are able to have a conversation with that person versus they're just telling you what to do. And just make sure that there's a comfort level there, that as you guys are having a conversation, you feel like there is an element of trust that's developing from that as well. I mean, I think those would be those aspects that I would give as advice for that type deal.
So, Greg, he touched on it, and I want you to go a little deeper.
Yeah.
How do we earn trust across the generational divide? How do you earn it? How do you earn the trust from these young people that you keep around you that you might not be formally mentoring, but they're in your sphere?
Well, I think, it's not even an effort. I like listening to them and getting their points of view. So my instinct is really mostly to just listen and not offer judgment or something right away. And I think that's sort of my approach to all of it in terms of like mentorship or relationships with folks. It's just like, okay, I'm learning here too, and just like make people feel like there's a safe space. Don't don't betray folks' confidence or trust in you. I'm not out there saying such and such said this, said that. Yeah, and yeah, it's related to the listening part. Not always feeling the need to be the smartest person. Sometimes you just let them say what they're saying, and you actually don't have to say anything sometimes or correct them even when they're wrong. Eventually they will come back and say, GK said this or GK said that or something. And it's like, whatever, we're all learning here together. That's how I try to approach it, not try to always be like, this is what I think you should do. And I know that there was a source, even, with Miles, a bit of challenge. I was never the person to tell him this is what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
I think he sometimes wanted me to tell him what to do, but I very rarely did unless I thought he was off track or something. But it's like, this is what I think. And this is my approach. This is what I did. This is how I thought about it. This is how I think about it. But I try not to be overly judgmental regardless of the scenario, unless you see somebody in trouble. And then you gotta like, yo, this is what's happening. So that's what I try to do, whether it's younger folks or just people I'm around, just kind of like more listen and like show through action what I actually think.
Well, and also remember that mentoring, mentorship, it's not a perfect relationship either. This is one of growth and guidance for both. Your mentor is not perfect. Your mentee's not perfect as well. And if you start, however, believing that that person is perfect, then there's an issue right there, then and there type deal. So I think we got to just say and put it out there. Just remember, people are people, What they're sharing is hopefully their authentic selves and what they've experienced as well. And you take from that as to what you feel you can take from it to help you on your path as well.
So let me ask, so have either of you, well, no, we kind of talked about that some, Greg, but John, have you taken on that full mentor role, or have you kind of mentored some people, but not quite formally? I'm just, because what I want to get at is the impact that it would have had on you. That's what I'm kind of interested in, is this flip side of it, what that was like as you being the mentor. What benefit did you get from it? What was the feels for you?
Yeah, it's like you said, GK. I don't think I've quote embraced the full word of mentor, but I will say that I have at least two that would consider me as their mentor, as I help give them guidance as they went through their path of medicine. One actually used to cheer with Alex, my daughter, And she went through her med school. We stayed connected, trying to help give guidance and understanding of what that looks like and how to navigate and how's this going as it relates to life around that. She did her residency outside of Chicago. So, again, learning what that was like, how she's doing. She went into internal medicine and now is a hospitalist actually at my hospital here in North Carolina as well. So whenever she's around, she references me, if we're together as her mentor. And then I had a young man who also considers me that as well in similar situation. I'd known him since we moved here and watched him grow up. And he decided the only thing I couldn't get is he went to Hampton instead of Howard. But that, I said, well, yeah, that's on you. But he did great. He went to medical school at Rush, in Chicago as well. And now he's a practicing cardiologist here in North Carolina as well. And I guess it's a sense of and still connecting and having conversations, with them on different levels as well. So I think it's a sense of like, hey, I guess I did help this person down a path that we think has done them well type deal. But my issue with mentoring is that, and I think you guys have heard me say this before, is that I still struggle with being a good father. So for me, it was about, well, wait, I don't know if I can mentor these folks if I don't even feel like, how am I doing with my own kids yet? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So, but again, as age and growth and life has gone on, Jonathan definitely looks to me for advice and recommendations and sees how I do things and tries to, at least have an understanding of what he may need to do to try to accomplish some things. But we talk about that, well, this has to be your path. It's not you trying to shadow my path type deal. And the same thing with Alex as well. I'm like, hey, you're a doctor now, you're doing your thing, but you did your thing your way. I just help to be a support for you, give you some thoughts on this, that, and the other, how to handle certain situations. But then it's up to you on how you take that and make it fit into your world and your life type deal as well. So. But yeah.
So maybe,
just a little imposter syndrome. That's all.
That, right.
I think so, but I also think that, right? Like, I'm your mentor, like, I mentored all these kids. It's like the same way. I was a great dad. Your kid's like, you sucked. You don't even like you, right? So it's part of it
that still goes to this notion of relationship ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Is it a declaration or is it an agreement, right? Right. Are we agreeing that this is a relationship where, I'm the mentor and you're the mentee, or I'm the mentee and you are my mentor? Is this relationship has evolved to that? And again, that goes to that clarity point that John had mentioned as one of the 3 C's. It's clear that this is the relationship. And the only way that becomes clear is if the 2 parties agree to it, right, on some level. And so it's not just not a blind, bold declaration. I'm going to mentor you because you need this in your life, and I'm just that dope.
I'm Moses. I've got the tablets on the mountain.
And so it's not that. It's developed a relationship. Now, sometimes people go into it with the plan of being a mentor or being a mentee, and that's a lot of these formal settings we talked about, right? If you've got this structured program where I'm signing up to be a mentor, right? I'm going to be a big brother. Listen, I'm this kid in this neighborhood that needs something, and my mom or somebody stuck me in this program, and so, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this. Versus other settings where that relationship might happen a little more organically, if it's in the workplace or in the church or in all kinds of other settings, that clarity might still come about, but it's going to come about a little more organically as opposed to a planned structure. Either way, it still ultimately comes down to this relationship. Right.
And a commitment to it, from both.
I agree. So, well, hey, I think that's leading us down to the next topic here, brothers. If you're good. And I think that is, where mentoring may show up is as it relates to guiding towards education and career choices. So, GK, I think we're going to have you kind of kick off our transition over to, is college still the required path for success?
Yeah. So I think we grew up anyway during a period in which college was called sort of the golden ticket. But we have lived through, those of us who had student loans, even 30 plus years ago, though.
He
At the
said
cost
had.
of
Right.
Adam,
He
or
said
still
had.
have.
I'm still paying. I'm getting close, but he said had.
Add or have, understand
Lucky
intimately,
you. No, I'm just kidding.
intimately how expensive college can be. And it's like, it's wild. Like, even sending kids to college now, right? Like, it's ridiculous. So there's this question of, is college worth it? Quote unquote worth it, given the financial cost involved. And on the other end, it's no guarantee, right, to a job or to any success in the future, right? The idea of college being so-called golden ticket is under major stress, even relative to like us 30 some years ago, right? It's even worse and more challenging to even deal with today for college graduates. And so, should we still, in the midst of not just the costs of it, but like given all the things that are happening in on college campuses, given all of the technology that's like replacing people, et cetera, should we
Disclaimer. I'm a university academic leader.
Right.
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 They call me Dean. They
Right.
call me Dean. I run at the moment 7 degree programs across 3 universities. So I'm a little biased on this issue, but just throwing that disclaimer out there. I mean, we're all college graduates. Yeah, I work for a university system. So I'm definitely a little biased on this particular issue. So I wanted to put that out there.
No. And I think that's highly important. But as we were getting ready for this, I did a little research on this one as well, my brothers, and came up and found out that there's a foundation out there called the Blue Heart Foundation. This actually is a foundation that developed for this question, basically, and really focuses on empowering and educating underserved youth. So they had 6 reasons for the importance of higher education for African American boys. And I'm gonna list those 6, and then we can go into it more. Or we, continue and incorporate that into our conversation as well. But the 6 were, in not any particular order, but expanded career opportunities was one of the reasons why. Higher earning potential overall. Okay, again, overall, we're saying here. 3, transition to a young man. That may be again some conversation that we earlier had as it relates to that as well. Or improved confidence was found through their research of African American boys that went on to higher education. Number 5, happier and healthier lifestyles was observed there as well. And 6, becoming a world traveler. I thought those were interesting 6 observations that they had as to the importance of higher education in African American boys. What I also found through some research, though, and this might blow your mind a little bit, the completion of college of Black males is only about 48%, or actually, sorry, 40%, about 40%. If they broke that down to HBCUs and predominantly white institutions, only about 32% of Black males completed their degree program, and they looked at a 6-year program when they looked at this, and 46% out of the predominantly white institutions. However, they did put the caveat that HBCUs showed a stronger positive impact on them after they completed their education through those means as well. So just some research points out there as we.
That's that cultural piece, that HBCU family kind of thing. And interestingly, when you talk about the white institutions, a large chunk of that are schools like mine. No, I don't mean U of I. I mean where I work at now. So I work for, I work for a for-profit.
Yep.
Right. We graduate more Black students than most of the HBCUs every year. Just sheer numbers, comparing institutions. But we graduate more Black and brown students and more women. because
Mhm.
our students are the students nobody else wanted. Everybody else
Mhm.
gave up on them. They thought that they couldn't learn, they couldn't do this or that. They just needed a little more. And that's the
Mhm.
same. And so it's different from the HBCUs in that we don't have the culture that the HBCUs have, but we have the faculty that care. And
Mhm.
so that's where their focus is at. And they just happen to work in those professions too. But it's really interesting what you said. One of the things I think that's tied to all of those, this six that you put up here, is what college does is college graduates think better.
Mhm.
College
Exactly.
graduates, college
Right.
graduates learn how to learn better.
Mhm.
That's what
Mhm.
college does for you, in addition to, say, developing a big chunk of knowledge in some particular area. If you complete and get that degree, is that
Mhm.
developing of critical thinking skills, is learning
Mhm.
how to do some research. It's learning how to not just take everything on face value, learning how to
Critical
read and
Right.
thinking.
write effectively,
Right.
communicate effectively. All of those things translate. And then that last one, becoming a world traveler, that goes along with that critical thinking piece, with that
Mhm.
being open to other perspectives and to look
Mhm.
at and be willing to learn. That becoming a world traveler, it's tied into that, right? Because you're
Right.
going to learn other cultures, you're going to learn other people. You've got to be comfortable not always being able to communicate naturally or comfortably, but you still have to be able to get it done, right?
Right.
That you're somewhere where they don't speak your native language, but you still need to be able to communicate with them so that you
Mhm.
can eat, so that you can get around, so that you can enjoy and experience their culture. I think people that go to college learn how to do that better.
Relationships, learning
Yep,
about
Mhm.
relationships.
relationships as well. Go ahead, GK.
Where did
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Mhm.
help but
Mhm.
see number now?
Mhm.
Increase
Mhm.
black
Mhm.
men, white men, like there's
The
something culturally
stupidification of
happening.
America.
Yeah. But it's that
Mhm.
I
because
think
it's just
they've been in
showing
that
up.
category in large numbers for a long time, but I think in recent years it's become a lot more evident.
Yeah, yeah. Or you're the higher ed, the
Well, no,
trends
and I was
have
just about to say,
gotten.
this isn't even about higher ed.
Yeah.
The organization that I was chairing a few years back, Project Higher Ed, our focus was on preparing families for college.
Mhm.
Our ultimate goal was to begin in
Mhm.
fourth grade. We
Mhm.
started out working in the high schools to start preparing students and families, but our ultimate goal was to work backwards, all the way back to like fourth grade, because that's where
Mhm.
you start to lose black boys. Is around
Mhm.
fourth grade is when they start to
Oh yeah.
diverge away from education. So the goal was, let's get there and get into school and try and work this program right there so we can catch them on the front end.
Oh yeah. For
You know,
black males, it's a long-standing thing. But I'm suggesting that they were the canary in the coal mine 30 years ago, right? Like,
yeah,
what was
agreed.
Jawanza Kanjufu's book,
Mhm.
The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys? And I think that from based out of Chicago, whatever. I
Mhm.
think we're seeing that amongst even white males now, and
Yeah.
that like I don't even want to get political here, but that's part of what I think we're seeing sort of play
Mhm.
out,
I
and you
think the
see it
political
just
is inevitable because, it's all tied together, the social, the political, the economic. But to your point, is that this is a true example of America trying to hurt us and hurting everybody. That's the historical reality we're living with right now, too, politically, economically, socially, in this very moment. But this is just another example of that. And you're right. And I think social media, all technology is allowing us to see it a lot more clearly and a lot more upfront. To your point, this is 30, 40 years back. This isn't just happening right now. It's generational, right? We see the difference from our generation to the generations that came after us. And I think this goes to that ultimate question as it pertains to black boys and young black men is, yes, the college is important. The technical skills are important. When you're looking at the careers of the future, AI is everywhere, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of jobs in the past are going to disappear, for better or for worse.
Mhm.
But the other jobs are going to emerge because when new technology comes, there's always got to be humans in the mix.
Mhm.
AI is only as effective as the humans that use it.
Mhm.
So there's always going to be a need for advanced education tied to technology. There's no
Mm-hmm.
avoiding it. And we got to get our young boys on that path so that they're not working the worst of the worst jobs that are non-tech jobs, you know. That's my opinion.
No, that's great. And I mean, part of that comes into play again as to does it have to be college? So we know that the cost of college these days is just astronomical, and the debt that they see later just as prohibitive as well. So it makes it difficult to follow those paths unless you're going into a profession that really is going to require that basis of knowledge and understanding. So this is beyond just the aspect of just natural growth, understanding, relationship building, critical thinking that we all felt that we got from college in and of itself. It was a matter of growing without
Yeah,
having
but
to
we
be
also
grown
got
yet.
career paths. We also
But
got career paths.
exactly.
Well, I
But
think
now, right.
No, it's not. It's not.
I think there are things, or even
Yeah,
you
but
know,
you
like
up
who
front.
got a traditional college degree, right?
in a
Like
lot of areas, yeah.
particularly,
And
particularly
college,
if you,
that's just it. College isn't just about the money, though, right?
Right.
The
particularly if you
career,
get
it's
particularly
not.
Or
some
community
kind of
college or
community college,
apprenticeship, right?
Community college
yeah,
is still college, and
where
so you
you,
know
well, that's
you
not the
still.
same. It's
It
not the
is.
same thing.
It is the
Uh,
same thing ultimately because the credits transfer, right? So when you
I'm
get
talking about
down
people
to it,
who
I'm not saying you go to one.
unfortunately.
I'm saying you get an associate's degree and you
Mhm.
that's still moving you on a career path. That's community college. That's
But
all
but
kinds
it's
of
an
colleges.
associate will
Or to
become
become or
a
to become a
roofer,
cop.
right? Or a police officer, or any,
Right, but nobody's talking about just a degree in history. I was just talking about
isn't it?
college in general as an example. But I mean, even to be a
As
cop, in a
opposed to
lot of
what? Going
places,
to
you have
college
to
and
have
getting a
an
degree,
associate's degree.
as opposed.
I was just
Well,
saying to be
yeah.
a cop, you still have to have an associate's degree in a lot of places.
I
So
think
that's still
that's
some
going.
college. No, that's actually going up more and more. It used to be that a lot of colleges, I mean, that a lot of law enforcement agencies didn't require more than associates.
We
What we're seeing
literally
now
just
is
passed.
more bachelor's degrees are
We
being required.
literally
That's
paying them
on the federal level.
$100,000 a
Right.
year,
That's on the
giving them
federal
50.
level. Most cops are not on the federal level. Most cops are at the,
We're
that's
going
short
to be
term. When you use ICE as an example, I think that's short term.
40.
No, I mean this lowering of standards.
Right.
Because that's
I
what that
think
is.
that's a more
I don't think
a
it's temporary. I
political.
think it's a
I
theory
do.
right
Well,
now.
Right.
I'm
It's
telling
like
you,
all
I'm
of
telling
them
you,
are actually just like undeniable. And I'm
That's
just
what's
using
going
the ice
on
stock as an example.
at this time. I agree with that, GK. I think that's what's going on at this time. But I
yeah, I
think
think
that's
that's a
stemmed
temporary
by a
blip.
lot of
No, y'all missing it. This
political.
is so they understand that, and so they do.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
they connect to college, but because white
Right.
males too are
Right.
starting to not go to college too.
Right.
You know,
Whoops.
but I think what I was trying to argue is that the way in which the old rules around college aren't applicable for the future, and I think that's not a statement against its actual value. It's a statement about what's actually happening, which to me is not good, by the way. We need people who are able to do all the things that we mentioned earlier, including critical skills, all the 6 things you mentioned, which is why people should go to college. I just think the country is far more
Right.
of the race to the bottom than we realize.
I see what you're saying, GK. I get what you're saying because if I look at it even from a medical standpoint, what do we see? We're seeing more physician assistants, nurse practitioners that are in essence taking the role as if they had a medical degree. And society is in almost accepting that as okay.
That's because that's all financially and politically driven.
It
Is
is.
what this is all
I
is.
agree. Right. I agree with you.
It's the setup to create more stupid consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Rick.
Is what this is all about. We want dumb people who buy stuff, who work who work hard. I mean, we're seeing it with this current administration, right? They're trying to turn the clock back. We want to create the only kind of jobs we want to create are manual labor jobs or jobs that are going to benefit corporate America. And you know what? And what else we can do? Hey, we're going to create new criminals. So all these kind of things so that we can create more opportunities for corporate America to make money. And let's dumb down the population. So to your point, Greg, yeah, they're trying to create They're trying to make it harder for people to go to college. They're trying to disincentivize it. They're trying to convince people that there's something wrong with those who do go to college, right?
Right.
You're woke or whatever. They've totally convoluted the true meaning of that word so effectively. But all of this stuff, to your point, it's designed to create, in my mind, just stupid consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And willing and driving the prices up on everything, right? So if all we got are physicians assistants, everybody's going to be fine with it, right? Why? Because I need something to help keep me alive.
Right.
And it's just that plain and simple. And so I'm going to accept whatever you give me. While the uber wealthy have the best doctors besides John, because he wouldn't work for them.
That's it right there. So, yeah. So I think it
I was gonna
sounds like
cuss, but we haven't cussed on these yet.
Did I?
every now
No,
and then it slips
I
out.
wanted to because I
Uh-huh.
want y'all to be clear about something. I'm not like saying these are like great developments. I want to
Right.
be clear. I'm
Right.
just identifying the direction in which it's going. I'm not saying these are good things at all.
Right.
You're
Right.
you're correct, Holloway. The idea is to create more consumers and less critical thinking.
That's it. That's it exactly. So
So,
it's up to
and trade
us.
school is not bad. Trades are
Right.
important. I think the future there needs to be one of the things that we're seeing in our space is that we're seeing that education is coming from all kinds of different directions. Even last year, our regional accreditor, Higher Learning Commission, at their annual conference, they talked a lot about non-traditional education, right? The fact that universities aren't the only ones granting degrees now. There are all private companies that are involved in education, right? And ultimately, education in all kinds of forms are a good thing, especially if they're teaching people how to think and how to learn. Trade schools, like I said, we've got programs that are I've got boot camps for like the cyber stuff and all kinds of different certifications and all of that kind of stuff. But though the most successful ones tend to marry the technical with those soft skills, with those liberal arts skills that were ultimately important to success, right? That ability to communicate effectively, to write effectively, to think effectively, to question things. If you can marry that with that technical skill, so the non-traditional degree, the four-year degree really isn't for everybody. I mean, a lot of
Correct.
schools now, there are now three-year bachelor's degree because that's becoming a lot more in vogue now, and the accreditors are approving them. And that's because it's all about those core skills, right? We don't need to do it in as much time,
Yeah.
right? And so it's kind of the bridge between the associates and that the traditional associates and the bachelors. We're getting that in that shortened period of time because these things are still important. I think even the landscape is changing. Yeah, different systemic barriers pop up. The money is always going to be an issue on some level because we've got a system that's designed to keep people out, right? Same thing, healthcare and education, same thing, right? In American history, the prices went up because we had to try and keep black folks out. The healthcare system is designed the way it's designed because it was set up to, we have to charge this stuff. So if we set prices right here, black folks can't pay for it. I mean, this is all in the history. It was all laid out. And the same way, like in law schools, even the American Bar Association and things like that, they were the ones who pushed for the bar exam and things like that. Why? To try and limit access.
Right.
All of this stuff has been designed
Right.
to keep
Right.
people out. And
Gatekeep.
which says to me,
Right. Gatekeep.
which says they don't want us to vote. Why? Because it's important. They don't want us to read. Why? Because it's important. All of these things that historically they've tried to keep us out of are the things we have to insist our way into.
Well, I go to this college question. I go back to my favorite class in college, and there's no lie. I can't even make it up. My favorite class by far. It was 2-part series class, and the first semester I got an A. I didn't take the second one, but it was called an introduction to the political left or some variation of that. it's the most important, like my favorite class in college. But I can't imagine paying $40,000 to $50,000 today to take that class, right? Like it for a particular moment in history, it had value to me doing it along with some other things. But I just think that for a liberal arts education like the one I had, to tell people that they're going to pay 50, 60 G's or more for that is a hard thing to do. And I think that it's a mistake if we think that everyone has to take that route, right? We have to
Yeah,
figure.
but you pigeonholed it into a liberal arts degree, and
Well,
so
that's what we're talking about.
I think that's important,
That's
though,
why I asked the
right?
question earlier about
Yeah,
if you're an engineering student, it's a different. If you're an engineering student at the University of Illinois, that's a different kind of education than if you're a sociology student at the University of Illinois, right?
yeah, completely different, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's because now college has been very
That's always
successfully.
been.
No,
That was
it's
what was when
tied to
you.
career path,
But that's what.
whereas in the
No, that's to
past,
you, Holloway. You got into the U of I as an engineering student. I got
right?
into the University of Iowa as a liberal arts student.
I graduated as a liberal arts student. I got a
But you,
political science degree.
Hollis, I already know that. I'm explaining to you that was 40 damn years ago, and I'm saying it's only gotten more exacerbated. It hasn't gotten
I'm
less.
with you. I'm saying the political science degree by itself was worthless. The only value that, but the cost of living, the cost of education, all of those costs were so much lower then, right? Compared to
Yeah,
now. I mean, a basic house in Chicago costs almost what $300,000,
at
whereas
least.
30 years ago it was 70,000 or 50,000. And so, and that changes the focus so much because that degree that didn't have a direct career path.
Right.
For me, the only path it had was law school.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I made that decision. I wanted to go to law
Right.
school, so I changed to political science because it was a less challenging path than trying to be an engineering student
you
going
got
to
that.
law school. All right. But if I had just that political science degree trying to go get a job then
Right.
or now, that's a
Right.
challenge. But now it's a much greater challenge when you're talking about $70,000 in debt
Right.
versus when I was at the U of I, my undergraduate tuition was about $2,000 a
Right.
year.
Right.
That's my
So that
point.
was, that was $8,000 versus what it is now. So,
Right.
so it's very dependent on that career path. So I think ultimately, and that's the challenge. There's two components to it. Am I looking at a college degree for a career path, or am I looking at it just for general learning? And that general learning piece has been destroyed because of
Yeah,
cost.
yeah,
Unless you're wealthy, you don't
Right.
get to go to college to discover yourself anymore.
Right.
You don't get to go to
Right.
college to learn and just explore Russian literature or
Right.
So
something like that. The
back
average
to the
person,
question.
and that's to that point about the black men. Most black men don't have that financial wherewithal to go down that path where
Right.
I can choose to study French literature, or even
Right.
like I did. A big chunk of my undergrad was I fashioned my own degree, right? My major was political science, but my minor was African and African American studies. I took African languages, I took African history, I took about 8 semesters of French so I could read African
Francophone.
authors in French. Exactly. But that kind of stuff you can't afford to do now. I was in
Right.
state, my law school tuition was $3,500 a year at one of the top 20 law schools in the nation because it was a state school. So, I mean, the finances have totally jacked things up. But I still think the ultimate answer is yes, where we can and where it financially makes sense. One of the things I was a student at this past graduation a few weeks back. He pulled me to the side and he said, I have a question for you. He said, I'm trying to decide on graduate school where I should go. And I said, the thing I always tell students is when you're picking an undergrad, I said, you pick I said you pick
You
the
said,
best school you can afford. I said you pick a good school, but don't spend a whole lot of money on it. I said
Mhm.
spend your money on grad school. I said try to go to the
Mhm.
best grad school
Mhm.
you can go to in that particular program area. I said, but as
Mhm.
far as undergrad, I said you're
Mhm.
just getting a degree, so you're trying to pick. If your goal is to go on further,
Mhm.
I said you want to save money in
Mhm.
that undergraduate degree
Right.
and try to go to the best program you can for graduate
Right.
school.
Well,
You know.
and I think undergrad is that part that we've been saying it is part of your growth and maturity and understanding of life as well. That doesn't have to be an expensive course for you to do that though.
And it
So,
doesn't have to be going away to school, which I
right.
think for a lot of people adds to that expense.
which I think is a whole different conversation because
Yeah.
That
I have
is.
the school of if you can go away,
That's better.
get the hell
Yeah,
out.
I
Even
have
if
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
someone
I
told me
agree.
once, you better off, like, being from Chicago, you better off paying that tuition that first year, that first semester than paying for lawyers. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
you got me. Sign me up. Like,
Mhm.
You
that
know,
was
the thing I used
literally
to say all the
Mhm.
time was if we weren't on a college campus, we might have been dead.
Mhm.
in the late 80s.
Right. Exactly.
That's not and late 80s,
Exactly.
early 90s.
Yep.
Hmm.
You're absolutely right.
Yep.
And not just because life was happening, but also because of how we were acting as college students. It's a
Well,
good
Mhm.
that
thing we
too.
were on a college campus.
All of that
Mhm.
together.
I couldn't have imagined being a college freshman, say at DePaul, at
Mhm.
Chicago State, being in the city of Chicago, being in downtown,
Mhm.
trying to be a freshman in college
Mhm.
versus being on a college campus in a
Mhm.
college town
Mhm.
where everything was centered around that university. It was a totally different experience, I think, than it would have been trying to be an urban college student in the 80s.
Although
Well,
John was in the
now
middle of
You
you
were
in the
doing that,
Washington, D.C.
John.
cornfields, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We were in the cornfields. It was nothing there
Right.
but the college town. You
Right.
Lord
were
But
in
have
see,
the
for
mercy.
city.
me, I was in the city,
Exactly.
but on campus, we had all of that going on though
You all
still
still had a
around
campus,
us.
though. You
Right.
all
We
still
still
had a
had a
campus. Most of
campus.
the Chicago schools, most of the city colleges and Chicago schools at the time didn't have a true campus like that,
Right.
where you
Okay.
had like dorms and all of the campus buildings. You all had a big chunk of land, just like we had.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
Yeah, oh,
you
no.
know,
Lord have
Right.
it's just that ours was
off
plopped
the
in a
hook back
in a
then.
farm. Yours was
Right.
plopped right in DC, right
Right.
in the heart of things. But you
Right.
still had a distinct campus. Same with Morehouse. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
there were walls. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. That's true. That's true. All right,
But
folks.
at the question still remains around like the golden ticket. College was
Mm-hmm.
for us,
Mm-hmm.
or at least I think we saw it that way. I don't know if it's a golden ticket anymore. I think it's
Yeah.
a ticket. I don't think it's golden.
Right.
And
I
we
think it
had
was kind of tarnished for us too. I mean, honestly, some of the gold had already started rubbing off in many respects. You know, it might have been a bronze ticket or a
Mm-hmm.
silver ticket,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think now that bad fella is
fun fact: the University of Iowa back then had no tuition for in-state students when I started. For in-state
Wow.
students, there was no tuition.
and
Wow.
they didn't have tuition, and minority
No tu-
students were getting at law school. When I talked to the dean of the law school when I was a senior, and he asked me what my LSAT score was, I told him. He said you come on right now, no tuition. But they did the same thing at Illinois. That's why I stayed in Illinois. All of the minority students at that time got a tuition and fee waiver.
Mm-hmm.
None of us had to pay tuition.
It's gone. Well, I had to pay
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
tuition when I was
Yep.
but
No,
that
I said, and in law school I didn't.
oh no
I
no,
didn't as an undergrad, but yeah,
but that's gone,
yeah,
right?
it's gone. It's
So
those
that
barriers.
ticket.
That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's I don't think it's the golden ticket that it was. I think it can be. I think it can be. I think it still is life changing. I see it all
Mm-hmm.
the time. And I'll just give this last example. at this past graduation. So I can go back to like August 15th, 14th. We had at one of my schools, California Southern, we got a lot of doctoral students, right? And at Triton, a lot of doc graduates. And I sent you guys pictures from the graduation. I met one of your frat brothers, and just that was the coolest part of it for me, because these were new doctors, right? Doctor of this and doctor of that. So I was just walking around the room saying, "Congratulations, doctor," all day long to all of these black and brown faces. And so that's that, taking it to that ultimate level. It was so cool. This one sister was walking down the hall, and I said, "Congratulations, doctor," and she just kind of paused for a moment and was like, "Wow, it just got real." Just like that. And I was like, yeah, because they hadn't heard anyone. I was like, you've earned that. But that's taking it to that extreme level. But the opportunity to celebrate with them that high level achievement is just so cool. It's so cool. But that alone isn't reason enough to say, yes, it's the golden ticket. But for me, it's the best part of the job in it for me. So we're going to wrap on this one, because I think we touched on a lot of different things, but mentorship in whatever form is critical, right? We didn't necessarily experience it in its fullest capacity when we were coming up. We've had opportunities, I think, to be mentors or to engage in mentorship ourselves. And the ultimate importance of it for our community is the benefit that it brings to the younger brothers, to the less experienced brothers who are moving into these positions, that we have opportunities to impact their lives. I think we should do it whenever we can.
Can I offer this? Can I offer this too? I think
Jump on in.
we need to develop a shared understanding by what we mean by mentorship. Because I think the more we talked about it, the more I realized that I don't know that we all talk about the same thing. Ourselves, we even use the word mentor or mentorship, and maybe that helps us if we can be more intentional.
Because at least that can align us on the path, right? If we're all thinking of, if we're using this word, but we're doing 5 different things, then it's not as an effective an effort. So I agree with you. So for the audience, what does it mean to be a mentor? What do you think a mentor is? What have been your mentor experiences? Have you mentored? Have you been a mentee? What were the benefits that you got from it? Right.
Do you need one? Is it important to you? Do you know of other people who think they need them? Right. Like,
For the older brothers, who are you mentoring? If there are opportunities, are you willing to step up? What can you bring to the table? What experiences do you have to add to this mix?
Because there's a lot of young people who be like, screw them old.
Right. What do you know?
Right.
And, I've been that person too, because, I've said this a million times, Greg. It's too many. Growing up in Chicagoland and looking at Chicago politics, especially, I've always said that the old heads are always trying to hold on to power for themselves and not doing enough of the mentoring, not doing enough of the bringing the younger brothers along. They're supposed to be the advisors now, advising the young warriors to come in there and do their thing. And so I think that's been a gap for us. I think politically in Chicagoland, I've seen that personally, but and nationally we see that as well, right?
The young folks have to be open to it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have to.
It's a two-way. It's a
Yep.
two-way
So
connection.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we thank you all for listening. We appreciate your comments when you're writing
back.
in. And we won't be gone this long again. If God willing, we'll be around a little more in the future. Take care,
Great
everybody.
conversation. Take care.
Peace.